All right, folks, let's jump into it. We're here with the very first exercise, which is going to be getting in connection with our horse's hindquarters, connecting this lead rope, our intentions, helping the horse get the understanding that this first exercise, we're going to be asking them to yield their hindquarters. This is not some crazy disengagement exercise like some of you guys might have seen before. This is simply getting in connection with the inside hind foot, working on both sides. And I like to start there because it's getting in control of the engine. Whether I'm like pretty much teaching a horse to lead, trying to get one caught for the first time, putting a first run on a horse, that is one of the very first things that I'm going to go do, is to get in connection with our horse's hindquarters. So I'm going to draw you guys a little diagram here because there's a few common mistakes that people make that we've seen at clinics all across the world, and that is that sometimes we get too close to our horses, or our horses get too close to us, and so we have to maintain that distance. I always explain it's kind of like the middle school dance, is that there's you, your horse, and room for Jesus in the middle. And that's how we've kind of gone about it. The distance needs to be maintained the same, so you do not need to get too close to your horse, and your horse does not need to get too close to you. All right, so the way I like to demonstrate this is that I'm going to draw as a line. I'm going to draw you a little diagram here in the sand, and hopefully you guys are going to be able to see it. Is that I'm going to draw a line that starts right at the end of my horse's nose, and I'll really kind of emphasize this line here so that you guys can hopefully decipher it. And I find this to be really helpful. We've done a video on this on a whiteboard, so if this doesn't pan out, you guys we'll put the link in and you guys can go check that out. So I've got my semicircle here. I'm gonna draw two more lines, okay? Those lines, one's gonna come right out of the quarter, right where the quarter line or the quarter crack, if your horse hopefully doesn't have one, but if it did, or if you've seen a horse that has one, that line comes right out of that quarter line in your horse's hoof. The second line is going to come right at the beginning of your horse's flank. Okay, so now I'll just look at my wife on the camera. Can they see that? Good, cool. All right, so now we've got like a piece of pie here, or a piece of pizza, whatever your flavor is. And so what I like to do is that I tell people you need to walk on this circle, because if I stay on my circle, just the outside of my circle, you can see my horses, if they stayed still, their head would be able to rotate with me because they have to pivot on this inside front foot. So for her, going this direction would be the full solid black foot there that we would like for her to pivot on. Okay, so as I would walk through here, if I get to my first line, which is connected to the quarter crack, I've got my lead rope at about this is a 14-foot lead rope, and I'd say my horse probably has 3.5 feet between my hand and them, and that's the room for Jesus in the middle, right? That's what they need to maintain. I've got probably, I'll lengthen this out a little bit, probably another 3 foot here on my end, because what's happening is that I'm going to be looking at that inside hind foot. When I get to this first line, if my horse hasn't started to move, then I might start making some motion with my lead rope, and I might swing it there. Now she moved, okay? Now I'm going to keep discussing this and then we'll do it again. She moved there because she knew that this was my gas pedal. So my body was saying, hey, I need you to move that inside hind foot. If you don't, by the time I get to this second line here, then I would be looking at making contact on my horse's rump with my lead rope, and that means what happens is the horse had plenty of time to know, because I'm swinging this lead rope all the way from here to here on my circle before I ever made contact. That second line comes out of the front of your horse's flank. That's important because if you get behind this line and you go to spank your horse on the butt, there's a good chance they might send you back to your front door, right? If you had something that was super disrespectful. So I always tell people, by the time you get to that second line, that is where you'd be looking to make contact. You do not want to get any further behind that line, because if you did, and the horse jumped forward and kicked out or something of the nature, or maybe you have a horse that is notorious for getting away. If you get behind that, they've got so much leverage on that lead rope to turn their head the other way and drag you off, that staying in between those two lines is super important. So let's see if I can just move her back over here. Maybe we can use our same lines. That'd be kind of handy. That'd be a little, almost. Come here. Let's see. I don't want to drag this on too long. See, I'm really testing my luck here. All right, that's pretty close. We'll just go with that. All right, guys, so what I'm gonna do, what I was saying is, if I'm swinging my lead rope, I'm just gonna rubber because I don't want her to go anywhere, but if I started swinging my lead rope at this first line, by the time I got back here, she's a little forward, the new line would actually be, I'll just cover this up right. The new line would be, this is the front of her flank here. So I wouldn't get any further past, we'll just make this, I don't want to confuse you guys. Piece of pizza is a little bigger. So I'd start swinging my lead rope at this first line. By the time I got to my second line here is where I'd make contact. And so I'm just going to start right here and say, hey, if I got back here and you missed it, then I would then make contact there. Okay, that's really important to do with our horses. Now, I already said, if you have to maintain that distance between the two of you, if your horse gets too close to you, then I'll try to simulate, if I'm asking for the horse's hindquarters and say it starts walking towards me like this, right? Then I might take my hand and say, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. Just like a horse that rushed the gate. A horse that rushes the gate, you're like, hey, get back. You're like, don't come on top of me. I like to use my left hand for that if they start walking forward. You have to be responsible for you. If you get too close to your horse will never stand a chance. So what I recommend is that you guys get two of you, get somebody in your barn, watch this video so you both have an idea of how this is supposed to be broke down, and then have one of you watch each other so you make sure that you're doing what you need to do and you're not prohibiting your horse. But without your lines, I'd be stepping out here to the side, looking at my horse's hindquarters, start swinging my lead rope, and then as she moves over, see how she ends up faced up. Now she stops and she's faced up to me, and that's super important because then the horse is maintaining focus on you and it'll tell you a lot of information. But you'd want to do that both sides. So if I step this way, ask that horse to step its hindquarters over just like that. And initially, guys, don't get greedy. Just get one step at a time. You get one step at a time, and then eventually you can start asking for that horse to make full rotations. Make sure they're pivoting on the inside front, yielding the inside hind. Again, it's not a crazy disengagement. You're not looking for them to just step all the way over. It's honestly just one little step towards the center, the inside front foot coming up and towards them, and then keep going. Brings up a good point. Some of your horses might start backing up. So some of your horses might start backing up, and that inside front foot starts tracking behind the outside hind, or sorry, the inside hind starts tracking behind the outside hind. And if the horse is doing that, you would just put your focus closer to the hindquarters and drive them forward until you get that inside hind foot to step over. A lot of times the horses that do that, either they're used to sucking back and getting away from something, and they're kind of engineered, they're like, oh, I'm just going to back away from that, or your body is actually focused too much towards the front end and you could be pushing them back with your energy. So guys, the very first thing is it starts with you focusing on that inside hind foot, asking your horse to then step over. Again, as I get into this, I keep thinking of little nuanced things that happens at clinics all the time. You don't want to walk your circle over here and be too short on your lead rope and start pulling your horse. See, I can make this happen, right? I can pull my horse around here. That's not what we're looking for. Anybody can pull their horse and get their horse's hindquarters to move. That's why I have a loose rein here. My lead rope has slack in it, so that when I go over here, it's my horse making that decision. There she kind of blocked me a little bit, so I just took my hand, tipped her nose away, and said, hey, there we go. You're kind of getting in front of me. Don't block me that way. She's working on it. And then I'm waiting for that inside. See how she's stepping behind here. And so I'm just going to keep going. I'll use that lead rope and say, hey, you track up underneath yourself there. You're kind of blocking me off this side. There you go. Now she got two good steps there towards the end, and we end her on that. There she was kind of blocking me off that inside eye, and so I just kind of continued on until we got where we needed to be. And so, guys, that's another good thing, is make sure that your horse has the slack. They need to be able to make the mistake so that you can correct them and get it back, so that you know that they're actually tracking their inside hind foot up underneath them and you're not actually pulling them into it. All right, guys, so that's step number one. Get after that, get busy. We'll keep building on it.